Well, hello there and welcome to the Trending Now podcast for a Friday, August the 25th, 2023. And I just did the math in my head. I'm somebody who always looks, maybe 1 or 2 days ahead. I'm not very good at looking a week ahead, but I've done the math, and 25 plus 7 is 32. There's not 32 days. So I know that this is the last show of August, and I don't know how that happened. Somehow the summer has now come and gone. We still get next weekend. We still get Labor Day, next weekend, but still something about it being the last show of August is hitting me right here in the feels, because this summer has flown by. It seems like it's either been raining or it's been too hot to do anything. And then, of course, we have the amount of wildfires we've had across the country have just been devastating. We're going to get to that. We're going to finish. We're going to start this show where we finished last week, that being the Kelowna wildfires. We'll get to that in just a second, but lots to get to as we recap the week that was on Trending Now, which you can catch every Monday to Friday on CHCH and at chch.com at 7 o'clock. And you catch the repeat again at 11:30 in case you miss it live. And again, that's available on CHCH, chch.com, and on our Trending Now YouTube page. Lots to get to this week. There was a GOP debate as the Republicans fight over who will represent them in the 2024 presidential election. But the front runner, that being Donald Trump, was nowhere to be found on debate night. He was talking to Tucker Carlson. We'll get into that in just a little bit. India made it to the moon, becoming just the 4th country to accomplish that feat. And what made it more unique is they went to the south side of the moon, and we'll talk about the significance of that coming up. The RCMP is investigating the Greenbelt, or are investigating whether to investigate the Greenbelt as the OPP to, I guess, clear themselves of any conflict of interest or the appearance of conflict of interest, have handed off the parameters of the investigation. The Ontario government very forcefully pushing back, saying it's not an investigation. They're just trying to decide whether there should be an investigation. We'll get to that as well. And the mugshot scene around the world, it took literally seconds for this to go viral last night, in fact, as Donald Trump was arrested once again, this being the 4th time in the last 5 months. So lots of Trump talk. I know it's unavoidable. He is the biggest story. He does lead most trends, but we'll get to that all coming up on today's show. Laura Sebben going to be by to explain the Scooter Braun drama. Talk a little F1 racing as they're back from their summer recess. And as always, Kelly Botelho going to be by to help us recap the week as well. But let's get right into it, and let's start this week, as mentioned, where we finished last week, and that's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in the Okanagan region in the BC Interior today to meet with firefighters, volunteers, and officials who are involved in the area's wildfire fight. Now, he started the day at the West Bank First Nation discussing the firefighting operation with Loyal Woodridge, who is board chair of the Central Okanagan Regional District. He then met with Chief Robert Louie, as well as West Kelowna Mayor Gord Milsom and Kelowna Mayor Tom Dias. Now, almost 200 homes were lost or damaged around Lake Okanagan in the last week, and 2 major blazes are being held by firefighters, but the McDougall Creek fire threatening West Kelowna still remains out of control as of today. Meanwhile, earlier in the week, while at a cabinet meeting in Prince Edward Island, Trudeau used the opportunity to blast Meta for banning domestic news from its platforms at a time when up-to-date local news is more important than ever during emergencies.
People have questions about whether they've lost their homes, about whether they need to evacuate, about how things are going, and that's where local news is so important. And the work that people are doing to share messages and keep people informed with safe, up-to-date information is unbelievably essential to keeping Canadians safe. That's why, and I'm going to make a comment on this, it is so inconceivable that a company like Facebook is choosing to put corporate profits ahead of ensuring that local news organizations can get up-to-date information to Canadians and reach them where Canadians spend a lot of their time online, on social media.
Now, staying with the climate theme, California was also dealing with some extreme weather that was trending this week. Southern parts of the state have a big cleanup job ahead as a former Category 4 hurricane, Hillary, arrived on the West Coast late Sunday night. Now, the storm was in a weakened state, but was still powerful enough to dump record rainfall over several regions, setting off flash floods and massive mudslides that clogged roadways, trapped vehicles, and left many people in need of rescue. The storm first made landfall in Mexico's arid Baja California peninsula in a sparsely populated area, but one person did drown, and it then moved through mudslide-prone Tijuana before becoming the first tropical storm to hit Southern California in 84 years, dropping more than half an average year's worth of rain on some areas, including the desert resort city of Palm Springs. That city and much of the Coachella Valley were left virtually isolated as floodwaters and mud choked off all access by road. Multiple rescue agencies confirmed that they had to pluck people from raging floodwaters, and the search for more trapped victims continued through the early part of the week. But it wasn't just mud and floods impacting the state, as in Ventura County, residents were rattled by a magnitude 5.1 earthquake as well. Now, major cleanup is ahead for Southern California as counties across the state still assess the damage, and some 25 million people were still under flood watches early in the week down south. Meanwhile, also trending this week, a shooting at one of Edmonton's major tourist attractions. 3 men were sent to hospital late Monday night with serious but non-life-threatening injuries after shots rang out at West Edmonton Mall. It happened around just before 8 o'clock local time Monday night in the Alberta capital as police responded to a report of a shooting at the mall.
And it was reported that 4 males left the mall and went to their vehicle when a second vehicle, a white-colored SUV, approached them and subsequently resulted in an exchange of gunfire. 2 of the males collapsed on the pavement with serious injuries, and the 2 others fled into the mall, one into the Wild West shooting range with gunshot wounds, while the other fled through the mall, and we do not believe that individual sustained any injuries.
The 4th man and the occupants in the SUV hadn't been located, but investigators believe that they found the SUV, which was involved in the shooting. Police believe it was a targeted shooting and that the parties knew each other. Though it's still unclear who the groups are, investigators say there's no threat to public safety. The lockdown was initiated to ensure the safety of staff and guests. But videos posted on social media show people who seem to be waiting in a bookstore and restaurant while investigators swept the area. And earlier this week, Manisa was joined by Yann Dumont, who's from Montreal and was at West Edmonton Mall Monday night with his colleague when the incident happened.
People were in the store just kind of wondering if it was a drill, even though the PA announcer was saying it was not a drill. But I didn't feel any kind of panic. There's nothing we could hear. There's nothing we could see. So there was no, and we didn't know what it was. So it's really only maybe an hour later than we learned in social media what it could be. We first went into a stop that was very close to an exit, and we had an opportunity just to leave. So I would say I sheltered, but maybe for less than 5 minutes, and then we went out on the parking lot, was right at my car, and left the scene. The fact that it was a shooting was kind of, surprising.
Now, switching gears to entertainment, also trending this week, Ariana Grande and Demi Lovato are both reportedly saying goodbye to music manager Scooter Braun. I guess in Ariana Grande's case, she's probably saying thank you next to Scooter Braun. If I had a studio audience, there would have been at least a light chuckle on that thank you next joke, but I'm still waiting for my studio audience here. We've got the set We've got the cameras. Now all I need is the studio audience to laugh at that very good Ariana Grande joke, who's saying thank you next to Scooter Braun. I'm making myself chuckle. At least somebody's laughing. Okay. News of the departures follows rumors last week saying that Justin Bieber was also potentially seeking new management, though those rumors were quickly denied. Braun, on the other hand, not bothered, poking fun at all the drama on social media, saying, breaking news, I'm no longer managing myself. And for more on this, very pleased to be joined by Trending Now producer and our entertainment expert. And please tell me you at least gave me like a sympathy chuckle when I said that Ariana Grande is saying thank you next to Scooter Braun.
Well, I also made that joke when I wrote the script for it this week. So,
okay,
yeah,
right.
you
So
definitely would have got a sympathy chuckle from me.
Good. Thank you. Next.
Yeah.
That's the song that she does, right? That's her song.
You're very hip.
I'm down with it, what the kids say. But what is this? What's going on with Scooter Braun? Did him and Justin Bieber break up or no? Like,
I don't know, because now apparently they're saying that Justin Bieber's trying to like get out of his contract that he has with him that is until 2027.
Yeah.
I believe it is. And like Carly Rae Jepsen, who also is a Canadian star who's managed by him, is apparently got out of her contract with him as well. I don't know about Tori Kelly. He also manages her, but she's going through some health issues right now, so I don't know if she really cares. But I don't know if it's like a problem with him or it's the fact that he's now the new CEO of Hybe America. Which
what is that?
Hybe is the label that has BTS on it.
Okay.
And so when BTS got big around the world, they basically were looking to expand their footprint, and so they created an American branch of their record label, which he is now the president and CEO of, and he sold his record company, which was called Ithaca Holdings, to them. And under that deal, they're allowing him to operate SB Projects, which is where he has all these artists under, in addition to Hybe labels, essentially. So I don't know if the issue is that like he just can't manage all these people now that he's doing that, or if like he's got some skeletons that we're going to find out about soon.
Well, and I guess that's, how can you possibly, like, I get it, he's got a team, Scooter Braun management. There's, I'm sure, hundreds of people, dozens or however many that work under him. But how can you honestly say you can manage all these gigantic superstars?
Yeah.
As being the guy, being their guy, being the first phone call they make when something goes wrong. Like, it really is unfair to these artists.
It's true. And I think Ariana Grande and Justin Bieber have the longest relationship with him. And probably he would be the first person for them to call because, like, he's the reason Justin Bieber got famous in the first place. And Ariana Grande, she's just today actually celebrating the 10-year anniversary of her first album, Yours Truly.
Does that one have Thank You Next on it?
No, that does not have that's
Break
like,
Free?
Thank You Next came out 10 years ago.
Break Free? I don't know.
No, The Way with Mac Miller.
Oh, R.I.P.
That's that one.
R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. But anyway, so he signed her shortly before she came out with that album. So she was still like a fresh baby in the music industry. So her and Justin Bieber would probably have like the longest and like closest connection with him out of anybody else. But yeah, as they get to the levels that they get to of like global superstardom, I can't even like imagine what goes on and how many people are involved in that managing process.
Scooter Braun known for two things. One, quote unquote, discovering Justin Bieber, signing him, and also,
I know what you're going to say.
you and him have this in common, actually.
I wouldn't say he hates Taylor Swift.
Okay, well, why wouldn't he hate? Why would he hate Taylor Swift? Because I'm sure she has made him millions of dollars. I
don't think
that's
so.
the only reason. That's the other reason. So why do Swifties hate him?
Okay, so
Explain this.
she was with the record label. I don't know how I'm remembering all these things. She was with the record label called
Just imagine what you could remember if you didn't remember all
Oh my
these
God.
things.
I think it was called Big Machine was the label, and it was
Very specific.
It was owned by this man also named Scott, because if you don't know, Scooter is like just a nickname for Scott.
Sure.
His name's Scott Borchetta, I believe is his name. And that was who Taylor Swift was under. Apparently she after like releasing several albums, she wasn't too happy with this guy and she was already trying to distance herself and move on, essentially. And when she wanted to do that, he owned all of her masters, which basically when an artist records something, it's called a master and somebody has to own it. And pretty much like no artist owns the rights to their masters until they're like later on in their life. So she didn't own the rights to her masters. And I guess this other Scott guy approached him about owning her masters. And why would you say no to that? Yeah. Like Taylor Swift's like one of the biggest artists on planet Earth, but unbeknownst to him, she was like trying to fight for them, right? So she kind of took out the fact that like he didn't reach out to her first before he purchased them as like an FU, I guess. Yeah, so then she like railed on him for a hot minute, started this whole Taylor's version thing, but since then, like really actually shortly after he purchased them, he resold them. And apparently, according to him, he reached out to Taylor to be like, I'll sell them to you.
Want them?
Like, you don't even have to pay me more than what I paid for them. Like, and she was not happy with that. So somebody else
entirely.
That's
why you hate Taylor Swift.
No.
I'm still trying to get to the bottom of why you hate Taylor Swift, okay?
I don't know. Somebody else entirely.
So you admit you hate her, though? You are.
I don't want to say that on the internet. I'm going to get doxxed by
like
Swifties.
The table. This is like confrontation. Like this is what I'm going to use this table for in podcasts.
I'm
just practicing.
I'm practicing. Use my name on this podcast.
Answer the question. Answer the question. Why do you hate Taylor Swift?
I plead the fifth.
Okay, let's move on. F1 big weekend this weekend. Max Verstappen can tie Sebastian Vettel with the most consecutive victories in F1. He's going for number 9 in a row. If you remember, Vettel, I'm pretty sure he swept the second half of the season back in 2013. Verstappen is running away with the F1 championship. Give me a reason.
Another person I hate.
Yeah, exactly. You admit it. Give me a reason to watch F1 in the second half.
Because Lewis Hamilton is the best ever.
Is this his last go around?
No.
Yeah.
But I know it's tough. You just kind of, I've been watching the F1 races this year pretending that Max doesn't exist. And I just like pretend that whoever comes in second is like the top driver. And I'm just like, oh, how fun. This person came in second.
I don't
you
think
just kind of have to,
way.
like, unless you're a big fan of Max Verstappen, you just kind of at this point have to ignore that he's in first place all the time.
Some tough news. Daniel Ricciardo is out, broke his hand.
Devastating.
And it like nothing crashed. I'm not sure what he was looking at. There was the McLaren car ahead of him that had already
probably got distracted by that. I think the turn 3 there is known to be a tricky turn.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, again, I know you want to make sure the car's like really good and they're probably really excited to be back on the track after 3 weeks, but like it's just practice. Like, why are we going off on practice?
Carlos Sainz says he wouldn't change the way the season works. He says Verstappen running away with it wouldn't change.
I don't think anybody wants to change that. I think what some of the drivers have been saying, at which they have been saying since Lewis was like really dominant, is if a team, like if you know the team is winning not only the driver championship but also the constructor championship, there should be basically like a date cap for when all teams can start working on their car for next season. So like right now, the chances that Red Bulls were already working on the next season's car are high. The chances that any other team is, probably not, because they're still trying to improve this season's car. And this was something that Lewis Hamilton even called for when he was dominating. He was like, I get it. It sucks to watch the same person win over and over again. So if there was like, you can't start working on next year's car until this date, then it would kind of slightly level the playing field because you wouldn't get like a 3-month head start on all the other teams, essentially. So, yeah.
You'll still be watching?
Well, yeah.
To see who finishes second.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the GOP debates. Watching the finish, who comes second. Somebody's running away with it. We're going to get to the GOP debates in just a second. Laura Sebben's going to be, Kelly Botelho is going to be by. Laura Sebben, thank you for being on the show today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Louie.
All right, as we continue our look around the week that was, also trending this week, the RCMP says it has started to look into a potential investigation related to the Ontario government's removal of some areas from the protected Greenbelt lands for housing development. News of the potential police probe comes a day after the resignation of the housing minister, Steve Clark's chief of staff, who was at the center of a damning Ontario Auditor General's report into the government's decision to open up parts of the protected area. In an initial statement to the RCMP, they confirmed that they received a referral from the OPP to investigate irregularities in the disposition of the Greenbelt surrounding Toronto. Then, in a second statement from the Mounties later on, they said the RCMPO division is beginning our evaluation of the available information as referred by the Ontario Provincial Police. After we have conducted a full assessment, we will determine whether to launch an investigation. Now, during his cabinet meetings, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau declined to comment on the possibility of an RCMP investigation. Back to the Auditor General's report into the government's decision, it found that Ryan Amato suggested all but one of the 15 sites that were ultimately removed from the Greenbelt last year after being given packages at an industry event by two key developers. This story, the Greenbelt, obviously not going away anytime soon. We're going to get to the GOP debate in just a second. Kelly Botelho is going to be by. But I did want to get to this in international trending news. The world held its breath on Wednesday watching an Indian spacecraft successfully land near the South Pole of the moon. The first time any country has gone to this region. The so-called flawless moon landing is a massive feat for the country and humankind, and an inspiration to other nations that they too can blast off to the moon. Now, India's Prime Minister watched the landing from South Africa, where he is attending a BRICS summit. The Indian Space Research Organization's Chandrayaan-3 spacecraft landing makes India the fourth nation to successfully land a spacecraft on the moon after the United States, China, and Russia, but as mentioned, the first to land on the moon's south pole. This was India's second attempt to land a spacecraft on the moon and comes less than a week after Russia's Luna 25 mission failed. Nearly 7 million people watched the YouTube live stream as the Chandrayaan-3 expected to remain functional for 2 weeks, running a series of experiments, including a spectrometer analysis of the mineral composition of the lunar surface. The landing expected to boost India's reputation for cost-competitive space engineering. Now, this satellite was launched, or this spacecraft was launched, with a budget of 6.15 billion rupees, or $74 million. And to put that into perspective, that is less money than it cost to produce the 2013 Hollywood space thriller Gravity. So India sent a spacecraft to the moon for the same price it cost to do a movie about space. That blows my mind. Now, rough terrain makes a South Pole landing difficult, and this first landing is historic, and the ice from that part of the moon could supply fuel, oxygen, and drinking water for future missions. I didn't want to get to this, but it was trending, and that's what we do here. We bring you the Trending Now news. But as we continue the week that was, we get to Thursday, where everybody was talking about the GOP debate the night before. 8 Republican candidates took the stage in Milwaukee, where in just a few months, they will be announcing their candidate for the GOP in Milwaukee. But they're hoping to sway Americans enough to be able to even contend with former President Donald Trump, who has a massive lead over all of them. While Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, has consistently stood in second place in the polls, though well behind Trump, it was 38-year-old businessman Vivek Ramaswamy who seemed to be at the center of the debate on Wednesday. He quickly showed why he has crept up the polls when he showcased his ready-for-video on-message approach, and he was flattered by the attention.
So first, let me just address a question that is on everybody's mind at home tonight. Who the heck is this skinny guy with a funny last name, and what the heck is he doing in the middle of this debate stage? I'll tell you, I'm not a politician, Brett. You're right about that. I'm an entrepreneur. My parents came to this country with no money 40 years ago. I have gone on to found multi-billion-dollar companies. I did it while marrying my wife, Apurva, raising our 2 sons, following our faith in God. That is the American dream. And I am genuinely worried that that American dream will not exist for our two sons and their generation unless we do something about it.
This was an interesting note. During the debate, moderators from Fox News asked the 8 candidates to raise their hand if they believe humanity was to blame for climate change. None of them did, but Nikki Haley, former UN ambassador and South Carolina governor, came the closest to agreeing with the question by at least saying climate change is real. That is the bar. That climate change is real, and Nikki Haley agreed that it's real, but doesn't believe humanity. Nobody believed that humanity was to blame for that. Meanwhile, Trump decided to skip the debate altogether and was interviewed by Fox News host Tucker Carlson.
Why are you at the Fox News debate tonight in Milwaukee?
Well, you know, a lot of people have been asking me that, and many people said you shouldn't do them, but you see the polls have come out, and I'm leading by 50 and 60 points. And, you know, some of them are at 1 and 0 and 2. And I'm saying, do I sit there for an hour or 2 hours, whatever it's going to be, and get harassed by people that shouldn't even be running for president? Should I be doing that?
Now, the pre-tape interview aired on social media platform X, and Trump claims that it had 200 million views. He called it the most viewed, what do you call it? The most viewed video of all time on Twitter or X. I don't know if that's true, but Elon Musk has really messed with the statistics on things like that. But despite his mounting criminal problems, Trump maintained that the 2020 presidential election was rigged, stolen, any word you can use to describe that he got ripped off, apparently. And there were also some, shall we say, interesting comments made about U.S. current President Joe Biden.
This crooked Joe Biden is so bad. He's the worst president in the history of our country. I don't think he's going to make it to the gate, but, you know, you never know. But he's a corrupt person, so corrupt that I took the name off Hillary. You know, I don't do two people at one time. I took the crooked Hillary and I retired the name. That was a good day for her. I bet she was very happy. And physically, he's not exactly a triathlete. They love pictures of him on the beach. I think he looks terrible on the beach. He looks terrible on the beach.
Skinny legs.
Well, he can't walk through the sand.
Trump also told Carlson that if he were still president, the war in Ukraine would have never started. And for more on this, very pleased to be joined by the host of Trending Now, that is Kelly Botelho, who has been covering the debate and covering the Trump mugshot that we're going to get to. And Kelly, a presidential mugshot, your first impression of that?
I mean, do you think he practiced what kind of face he was going to do?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Caitlin Collins on CNN, she had John Bolton on, and she asked John Bolton, like, what do you think? Mm-hmm. He's like, there is 100%. He could have gone in smiling. This is his message, I think, that he's sending. And they're already merchandising it, Kelly.
Love that. If looks could kill, I mean, that would be one, right?
That's the stare he wants to give Fani Willis, the Georgia prosecutor who's going after him so unfairly.
Yes.
This is blowing up. I mean, this show is called Trending Now. I can't remember a topic that has been trending quite like this.
This is number one trend today, and also funny enough, 215 was trending today, and I was like, what's this all about? I clicked on it. Everyone's talking about his weight and height that was recorded on the jail records from yesterday. So we don't know who wrote his height and his weight.
There's no way it wasn't him.
But it's there, and it's 215.63, and immediately the internet's like, absolutely not, and started comparing him to people who are actually around that size. Like, for example, quarterback Patrick Mahomes, who is 6'2", 225 pounds, and quite obviously an athletic build. So, yeah, I thought that was really funny. I mean, it's just everybody... The internet had like a heyday today with it.
It was, so I was on Twitter last night watching, I was on X. I'm never going to say that. I'm never going to say.
It's not catchy.
Not catchy. I was on X last night. I like waiting for it, and I did fall for one fake Trump mugshot. Sent it to my buddy right away, and it was like, oh no, and I felt bad. I didn't retweet anything, but Trump is already selling merchandise. He took to X for the first time.
2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, he must have really liked his mugshot to do that. Because if it was something it's going to be everywhere anyways, but if it was something that you didn't like, you wouldn't have been posting it.
Etsy stores are probably selling out. Like, everybody made that joke. Like, how much money are you going to make? But, he got in on it. Like, he's selling this stuff.
Yeah.
He's selling, like... And the one thing is that he's branding it with like no surrender when like literally he had to surrender.
That's exactly
to
what
jail.
he did yesterday.
It's like, wait, if you're not surrendering, wouldn't you like not go down?
Why did you surrender then?
Yeah. This is. I mean, we're making light of it, but we talk about this frequently on this show about living through history.
Yeah.
A former president has never had a mugshot like this. Has never been arrested once, let alone 4 times in the last 5 months.
And you know what? A lot of people were saying, like, oh, these trends of his mugshot, of his weight, of his height, this is all silly. But this is all so brand new. Like you say, the first time in American history that there's ever been a president to have a mugshot. There's ever, all these jail records of him. Of course, people are going to find it fascinating. This man was the commander-in-chief of the USA, and... people are fascinated by all of this.
Was and could be again.
Could be again, yes.
Could be again. We mentioned that GOP debate. I like to think of myself as interested in news. It's what we do for a living. We watch the news. We're journalists, right? I would like to put us both in that category. I mean, you've been doing this a little longer than I have, but I mean, I'm interested by the news. I tried to watch. I really did. Yeah. I tried to watch that GOP debate. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't. And it's not because I disagree with a lot of the things they're saying. I mentioned I wasn't happy about the climate change thing. Mm-hmm. You can't acknowledge that. You're still supporting this guy. They asked, even if he's convicted, is he still president? But
the Trump support is there.
I don't get it. I really do
very much
not
behind him still.
Get it.
Yeah.
And the support outside the courtyard or courtroom and the threats that they're sending to the Fulton County grand jury and the DA. I'm genuinely curious what the next 18 months are going to look like. There's a little part of me that's terrified of what the next 18 months are going to look like.
Do you think, why are you terrified?
Just, because we saw what happened January 6th. Yeah. Like, January 6th is something that a lot of people on the Trump side want to move past. Mm-hmm. But it was a violent attempted coup. And it just seems like so much of that population is ready to not even move past it, but pretend it never happened.
Right.
But it was a direct result. And so many people are dismissing these charges before a court. They're dismissing them, and Trump's leading the way, dismissing it as a political hit job. When, these are legitimate charges that have been charged to other politicians. Just because he's the loudest and the angriest and the most forceful doesn't make him unique.
And even yesterday, he still maintains the election was rigged, and this is what brought him these charges, right? We're saying things like this, and
I wasn't saying things like this because that's what we're saying. The First Amendment, you can say it all you want,
right?
When you take deliberate action,
yes,
which is what he has done,
yes.
So he can still say, but is he still calling up Brad Raffin? I still need those votes. I still need those votes.
It's just crazy. Like, you would think that, with all the criminal charges against him, there would be somebody advising him to say, like, listen, don't mention it.
He wouldn't listen.
Stop saying the election was rigged. Yeah. Maybe just don't even talk in general. Yeah. But instead, he talks to reporters. He posts on social media. He posts his mugshot. He sells merch.
He loves it. I was telling you, a lot of people recommend things all the time. Yesterday, I was flipping through Netflix.
Okay.
Meet the Furies.
Oh.
Came
At
on.
Home with the
At
Furies.
Home with the Furies came on my recommendations, and I should have listened to you 2 weeks ago. What a great show.
Hilarious.
What a great show. At Home with the Furies.
Yes. It's about Tyson Fury.
It's about Tyson Fury, the former undefeated heavyweight boxer. He's got 6 kids, and like that part, like immediately connected with like the chaos at home that he's dealing with, like losing kids, like my mom could never call me by the right name. James, David, Lewis, like it would be the third one usually. 3 boys, 3 girls. The chaos of like the first episode was like a christening that they all went to, and I'm like, this is my life. Like,
and
not
he loses his kid.
Yeah. Like again, a regular occurrence in my family. Like, where's David? Like, has anyone seen David?
I really liked that show, and it's interesting for me. Like, I don't like sports. Like, I'm not a sports fan. I don't follow any sports teams. Yeah. But for whatever reason, I love a sports story. Yeah. Like, maybe it's just like the journalist in me, but I love like the people behind the sports, you know? So Tyson Fury, when I was watching that, he's such a character. His dad is such a character too. And they're so open about their mental health struggles, which I found was really refreshing and really genuine and honest. And it was just, like I said, I recommended it to you. It was hilarious.
And I think his wife like really gave me an interesting perspective as a caregiver of someone with mental illness problems. Like her patience. And like there was the one quote where she said people, he's just using it as an excuse to be an ass, or using it as an excuse to get out of things. It's like, no, like that's not the point. Her patience I thought was awesome. Great recommendation, Kelly. So I had to tell you, it was a fantastic recommendation. Big plans for the weekend?
Peach Festival.
Oh, you're going to Winona.
Yes.
I was in Winona this week.
I know.
I did.
Did you sample the peach pies?
I sampled the peach cobbler. The peach wasn't ready. So Immaculate Heart of Mary is making cobbler. 50 United Church is making pie. And then, of course, there's the peach sundaes, too. But I did the drop zone. And a lot of people have commented on my high-pitched voice while I was doing the drop zone.
Were you scared?
I wasn't like scared. Like I kind of like joked halving, like, it was like for the camera. But there was that one moment where you're not on the seat. I wouldn't recommend the drop zone for you though, Kelly.
Absolutely not.
Well, enjoy Peach Fest, and I appreciate you doing this as always.
Thank you.
All right, my thanks to Kelly Botelho. My thanks to Laura Sebben. My thanks to you as well. The Trending Now podcast is available every Friday wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and Trending Now is Monday to Friday, 7 o'clock on CHCH, and you catch the repeat at 11:30 as well. From all of us here at CHCH, I'm Louie Butko. Hope you have a great weekend. Take care.